like to discuss is my 25 years in direct response taught me while I was doing these interviews that crowdfunding is really the newest form of direct response. I also learned what the distinctions were between the failed campaigns and the successful campaigns. I also learned the distinctions between the successful campaigns and the mega successful campaigns, and they were two different things. One was getting a success was about networking, reaching out, and doing the basics. But then what happened was the unknown kicked in, and that's when the distributors of products who are out there looking at the crowdfunding portals start to see, wow, that one's really taken off. That could be a good product for me to distribute. Then they come in, they reach out to the campaigner who didn't know they were going to reach out, because that's not a big part of crowdfunding. And all of a sudden, the campaign goes through the roof. So preparation is big. You got to start a campaign hot. If you start it hot, you're swimming downstream. Started cold, you got to swim upstream. It started hot, comes out, gets everybody's attention. Journalists write about it. Then more backers come on. Then it gets more attention. Then the distributors come in. It starts to grow and grow and grow. So let's talk a little bit about the fundamentals of direct response, telling a story with a focus. And a mantra in direct response is test, observe, adjust, expand. Google Analytics says it's not always good news, but it's good to know. So it's easy to change your pitch, a lot easier to change your pitch than it is to change your product. So if you get bad news and you approach it, intellectually rather than emotionally, you can make those changes. So talk a little bit about direct response and kind of that approach of being able to test things cost effectively to get market verification.
Well, that's absolutely necessary. I mean, I think earlier we heard from Alvin, doing all the research in advance and preparing for a campaign is probably one of the most important things you can do before you can put up your campaign. And in following specific steps in building to that point where you actually launch. I've had people call me. In fact, I had a conversation with someone not too long ago that put up a campaign on Kickstarter, was looking to raise $100,000, and there was really just about nothing there. And there was just no way in the world he was going to raise $100,000.
It looks like your mother doesn't love you when you start that way.
Oh, it was kind of scary because when you went to the when you went to the Kickstarter page and you read what he had and you looked at the rewards that were there, and the video wasn't really a video, it was like a picture, and you're like, what did he do? I mean, it was like someone that was looking to learn how to swim and had no idea what they were doing, and just went to the edge of the pool and jumped in and said, well, let's see what happens. I don't know. I mean, I'm either going to make it or I'm not. And he was expecting to make it.
Yeah.
So,
one of the sad parts about that, I was at a women's conference, a women entrepreneur conference in San Francisco. One of the sad things is people think that's a judgment of if their project has merit or not. That's the really sad thing.
Right. Yeah. Right. Now, the project had a lot of merit. It really did. And what surprised me more than anything was this individual was, his business was PR and marketing. And when I asked him a question, so, why did you decide to do this? He goes, well, I thought, that if I crowdfund it, it would be a little bit easier. And if I put it up, I'd get a lot of people contributing the money because, it was a good cause. And it just shocked me. I mean, I just couldn't understand that. And so when we went on with the conversation, at the end of that conversation, he said to me, well, you're basically telling me that I should do what I normally do in marketing and PR before I put up the campaign? I said, yeah, okay. I said, do you have any social capital? Do you have people on Facebook or anything? Oh, yeah, I've got 100,000 followers. I'm like, oh my God, I mean, I don't get it. Why didn't you follow the normal process of what you do with a normal client for yourself? And he really didn't have an answer for that.
Well, you know, so like the contractor who, you know, his house is falling apart, right?
Right.
So, anyway, Catherine, thank you for that.
I think we can all agree that you have to have a message and a story and all that fun thing. But one question I've always loved to ask clients from a PR perspective, marketing perspective, is what keeps you up at night? Because if you can create a story, you can create a message, you can get followers and all that, that's great. What happens when a crisis happens? Because ultimately, somebody somewhere is not going to like you, and they're going to say something about it. It just depends on how big their audience is as to how big it impacts you. So that's the number one thing I think in the social media realm you really have to keep focused on.
Okay, Kim, we're in digital age. Everybody's developed super ADD. They've got, what, 28 seconds now or something, you know? So let's go back to DR techniques in terms of short pitch and getting that attention and a call to action all squeezed in, you know, getting your foot in the, as Dick Clark said to me, he said, Mike, if I can get my foot in the door, I can get my hip in the door, I can get my shoulder in the door, I can get my head in the door, and then I got to go on business. So even a guy like Dick Clark has to get his foot in the door. How do you get your foot in the door real quick, messaging-wise?
Yeah, well, it definitely takes a lot of homework, strategy, planning, writing, and rewriting.
Yeah.
And this is what we do for clients because just like with a business pitch, elevator pitch, we have to use very, very similar techniques with the media because they're bombarded.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's trying to get in the New York Times. Everyone's trying to get in, you know, IBD. They're so bombarded, and we hear back from reporters all the time that, hey, please keep your pitches short, keep it brief, just hit the main points. That will interest me more than anything.
One said to me, I feel like an Eskimo in Alaska in a snowstorm. And all the information comes in in white paper and black ink, it all looks the same. I'm supposed to make the distinction. You got to help them do their job, right?
We do, and this is the other side of it too, because we're still trying to educate the media.
Yeah.
And sometimes education takes a few more paragraphs than just a high-level 1 or 2 sentence deal. So we're always battling with that fine balance of how do we make what we want to say concise, but also still effective. Because if they don't get it, they're not going to write about it either. And so that's an ongoing battle. Not only do small businesses...
The tightrope.
Yeah, it's a tightrope. The other thing I would also add, too, is the fact that and this is what we have to manage from a public relations perspective, too, is that in many ways, particularly when crowdfunding first came on the scenes, and maybe still even today, we've made it sound too easy.
Yeah.
And we've said, hey, just put a project out there, you'll get $50,000, you'll get $100,000, you already have these followers.
And it used to be a story. To do a campaign, it's not a story.
Right, and it was just so, we made it too easy. And that's why I appreciated the previous presentation. Like, no, stop the madness. We need to tell entrepreneurs that yes, it can be hard, and if you don't have these key components in place, your campaign can fail. And everybody's been afraid to say that, you know, but it's true.
Yeah.
And if we don't have honest conversations, and if we don't control that message even with the media, then we're setting people up with the wrong expectations on the front end, and they don't think they need anything but just to go to Kickstarter and post some stuff, and you know, it'll all happen. And so we made it sound too easy. We need to make it sound intelligent. We need to make it sound doable, but there's the work and the homework and the thinking and the education that has to come behind that to make it doable and to make it successful.
Patrick, you sound like a very practical guy and knows how to go about getting this job done. How do you do it?
Well, so there's one quick thing I want to talk about, which is crisis moments. So Airbnb, great company, they have this practice every quarter where they do a post-mortem. So if my company were to die today, why did it die? And every quarter they do this practice, and they reverse engineer it so they ensure they don't die. Great thing to do for your project as well. One thing that I see from my observations on why projects get press, it's 2 reasons. One, they either beat their funding goal by a huge amount, 200, 500, 1,000. So A, you can lower your goal and know that you're going to beat it in order to get press. The second thing is your actual product itself is pretty revolutionary. You know, look at the Pebble Watch, which is one of the highest or most successful crowdfunding campaigns on Kickstarter. It's a new product that no one's really seen before. So if your product's either really innovative or you know you're going to smash your funding goal, two very practical things in order to get easy press. When people talk about Apple, they don't talk about what their products do, they talk about why they do it. Because people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And you look at a commercial, they talk about how it's beautifully designed, how it's sleek. It just so happens that they make iPhones or computers. And people wait in line endlessly, not knowing what the actual product is, just falling in love with it because of the why. So really understand what your why is for your project. That's how you connect with people. Sure. The second thing is this thing called the diffusion of innovation. Sounds kind of theoretical and technical, but Malcolm Gladwell in his book Tipping Point kind of popularized it. But it's this idea that you have to, what's called in business called crossing the chasm, but you have to get your first 20%. And oftentimes that first 20% is made up of what's called early adopters and innovators, which for most people in crowdfunding campaigns means your family and friends. If you're able to secure donations from your family and friends, there's a good chance that it'll start to go viral because their friends will also start to get good behind the campaign. And there's this great moment on Shark Tank that's something you don't want to do where the investor asks like, oh, why hasn't your family or friends get involved? And the family and friends said, it's too risky. So why would the investor get involved if your family and friends think your business is risky? So start there. Start with that first 20% because it's a good testing ground for you and hopefully will lead you to more success as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have just about two points to cover, I guess. One that's the theme is your amount that you want to raise, and it's totally true what you just said. That if you lower the goal, I believe an example that was really good yesterday was a gentleman had a very cool idea, and he said, if I raise $10,000, I can do it. I'll be happy at 25. So he put his goal at $7,500, and they ended up raising over $40,000. So you really want to think about, what is the minimum that I would be happy with, because you have to include the fact that, even if this doesn't get me to what I actually need, I get that exposure, I get that success. And like Patrick just said, a successful campaign is going to be 10 times more well received than something that's just kind of getting there. The other thing I really want to talk about is targeting. It's one thing to have your social capital set up and have your friends invest, but a question you want to ask is, do you want your supporters to be your friends just because they're your friend, or do you want your supporters to be someone who is in love with your idea, love your cause, and going to continue to support you no matter what? So it's very important that you get that first friends and family, but you want to think about the message. Who are you going after? Who is your target user? Because those are the people you want to go after and get funding for your campaign. That's who you need to do your social media around, start to attract and talk to. So it's really just your goal, what do you actually need, and who is your target user that you want to go after. I think are very important things to consider when you're doing a campaign.
Good, thank you. Okay, I'd like to address something near and dear to my heart, being a baby boomer, is the generation gap. I think it's huge, and I think it exists right now. I think it's a big problem. I think there's a real lack of communication between my generation, many of whom have been jobbed out, laid off, afraid of digital media, don't know what to do in the digital age, younger generation, and who are your friends and family? Your parents are the boomers, and you got to go to them first, and if they don't understand it. So we got to all work together. You got to bring the generations together. And, to my boomer friends, I say, look, with the cloud and everything's gotten so much easier and apps, anybody can accomplish miracles today on their own, at their laptop, worldwide, with apps and technology that people have spent a lot of money creating to make it simple. So let's just do a quick summary. If we can we do a quick summary?
We're out of time.
We're out of time. We're out of time.
I want to thank you, Mike. It was a great panel.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. You've been helping us tremendously. Did you mention anything about your radio show that you got over there for the audience at Crowdfunding?
Thank you. Yeah, we are crowdfundingintelligence.com. We're on about 500 plus broadcast radio stations, morning drive time, and that's where I've interviewed so many campaigners. But I've been in broadcasting forever, and I got to tell you, Sydney to me is the Ed Sullivan of crowdfunding. He's a